Hey everyone, welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. 1996 Toyota 4Runner. Customer complaint, idle's too high, like 1500 RPM all the time. No code set. So, what do we do first? Let's look at some scan data. Key on. Get back in here. Alright, so the custom data list, you want to look at RPM, TPS, engine coolant temp, intake air temp, our grams per second airflow, short term, long term. We can see what the oxygen sensors are doing, why not. Idle air control valve, that's very important for idle. Then it has a couple of interesting VSVs, idle up VSV, SCV air. All this stuff, I don't think it has variable valve control, but we're going to select them all and list view. Let's start up. It's already warmed up. So we really want to focus on the IAC counts, about 50%. It's idling at about 1300 RPM all the time. It's fully warmed up, should be less. TPS is 11.3. Well, is that good or is it too high? Not exactly sure. Intake air temp looks reasonable. It's really warm outside. Engine coolant temp is, normal. It's not fully warmed up yet, but my friend who owns the shop here said he unplugged the coolant temp sensor and the idle went down. So he's like, hey, needs a new coolant temp sensor. So I asked him, well, did you at least check the scan data? No. So looking at the scan data, it doesn't look like the coolant temp is out of spec at all. Our temperature isn't fully warmed up yet, and we're at 143. Why is it going down? I'm not sure. Maybe the thermostat's broke. But the throttle position sensor 11.3, I don't think that's, might be a little too high. Radiator hose is actually really high. Unplug that. That works. Right now it's closed. I don't like that car's heating up. We're at 141. That's too low. So A, I think it needs a thermostat, and B, this TPS, I want to turn that throttle stop screw back and see if the idle comes down, because even at 140 degrees it should be, the idle should be like 600 RPM. better thing to try. I unplugged the coolant temp sensor. We're at minus 40 degrees. The idle's down to 1,000, not where it should be. And the throttle stop screw, I screwed it out, and the throttle can't close anymore. So there's something else going on here. Some kind of input, perhaps, to the idle air control valve, because you know, if it drops to like 30 or 20, I think we should be back down to normal. Turn on the headlights, air conditioning, IAC counts up to 62. AC night blows nice and cold. If it has a power steering pressure switch or something. Back down to 53, that's still too high. What are the inputs? CT is at 145, I don't really like that. So my call right now, it needs a thermostat. Because indeed the vehicle is not warming up to 190. Right now it's at 150, but it's dropping. It's not supposed to drop. It's running. It's supposed to warm up to 190, just stay there. Our IAC count's 52%, a little bit too high. The idle is 1200, 1300 RPM. If we really wanted to check this conclusively, we could plug a decade box and make this temperature go to 200, and then if the idle's down, verification needs a thermostat. I don't have my decade box with me, unfortunately, so we're just gonna have to throw a thermostat at it. It's definitely broken, and that's the only variable that we see right now that might be causing this problem. I know Toyotas are very picky, until you really warm up fully to operating temp, they will not drop the idle. I've seen this on 90s Toyotas. One variable that people might ask about is, Ivan, how do you know the coolant temperature sensor is not lying? Well, if you look at the temperature needle, it doesn't get to the middle. It gets, like a quarter of the way up. I know that's not right because my brother owns one of these things, and when it's hot, it's right in the middle. Does the needle have a separate sensor? Or is it the same sensor? Quick way to check that is just unplug the main ECT sensor and see if the needle drops, right? So unplug this guy right here. Needle does not drop. So that proves this thing has two sensors, one for the gauge on the cluster and one for the computer. And they're both accurate, they agree. That means we can confidently trust our scan data. That means it needs a new thermostat. How about that? Everyone, just a quick follow-up on the Toyota 4Runner high idle diagnosis. Yes, it's fixed. The thermostat did the trick. My friend at the shop, Absolute Auto Repair, Anton, he replaced the thermostat the next day, and the truck ran perfect once it warmed up. Idle dropped down to about 700 RPM. So sorry I couldn't show you that since I was just there for the diag, but repair is confirmed. So it pays to look at your scan data. So there's no code stored, but if you suspect a problem with one of the inputs to the computer and it's doing something funny, scan data was the ticket here. And you kind of needed to use some reasoning, know what's a known good, what's a known bad, sift through the data, and usually you can narrow it down pretty quickly. So thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.